Good morning and welcome to the latest in our live British Heart Foundation training guides. I'm here, Keith Anderson, this morning with my coach and colleague, Ben Barwick. Morning, Ben. It's a bit unique.
It's a bit different, this isn't it, from usual. We're in the same room, in the same country, on the same screen.
So that can only mean it's all going to go wrong.
Yeah.
But anyway, welcome to all you guys this morning. We've got, as I say, Ben and myself, and we've also got David from the British Heart Foundation online if you've got any questions about fundraising. We've got a pretty packed show this morning. It's busy, but and it's all marathon based. We do have a bit of news just coming to us this morning, which we'll probably talk about a bit later on. But we've just heard that for London, they've been having some road issues with one of the underpasses. Yeah. And it looks very much like this year they're going to have to extend the race. So instead of being 26.2, it's going to be 28 miles. Very, very unusual. Yeah. But anyway, we'll come back to that later. Don't worry about it for the moment.
It's nothing to panic about.
No, we'll deal with that. But anyway, topics for today. We're going to be looking at the kind of final weeks of training for the different marathons. We're going to Ben's going to look at race routes and logistics, so you know exactly what to do, where to go. We've got Julie Sparrow doing a nice video on last tips on injury prevention, and then we've got a wonderful message from British Heart Foundation just to remind us all why we're here, what we're doing this for, and to focus your mind on that, and no doubt help with your fundraising as well. I'm going to come back and talk a bit about race day and some of the issues around that, and we've got a roundup at the end. We've also got questions, Ben.
Yeah, definitely, and you can ask questions during the day, during the hangout as well, so don't be afraid if there's something you're not sure about. Pop them in on the little chat box to the left, and we'll get to them as soon as we can. Or we're on Twitter and Facebook if you want to get in touch via that way as well. Yep.
And either Ben will slot them in as we go along if it's appropriate. If not, we'll, as I say, we'll round them up at the end. But anyway, we just to for those that aren't aware how long you've got to go, we've got just 1 week for you guys that are doing Brighton and Paris. So that's you're well focused and really getting ready to go. London, you've got the luxury of 3 weeks to sweat about it, and Edinburgh, you can kind of kick back a little bit because you guys have got 8 weeks. Now, we're going to look at Edinburgh just a little bit because obviously you've got a longer time scale, but the important thing really is to be making sure that you're doing the right training and not getting carried away, not trying to do too much. The last thing we want to do is to overload, do inappropriate training, trying to play catch up. These are the things we don't want to do. Otherwise, you could pick up an injury or an illness, which we want to avoid with this 8 weeks to go. Threshold training is still very important. For those of you following our training plans, you know how important it is. You know the pleasures of threshold by now, but you do progress. You do see your speed endurance improve, and it really does help with the long run, helps that you become more efficient, just makes the long run seem that bit easier. And the long run itself has gradually progressed over the weeks so that you're spending more time on your feet. If you don't have a race plan from us, or if you want to talk about the race plan that you have and find out whether it can be changed or altered, we don't want to do anything too drastic at this stage, but by all means just send us an email and we'll look at it and come back to you with some recommendations, or indeed provide you with one of our training plans for your level and personalized. So it's important, do that if you can. Also in the plan, in our plans anyway, you will see that there are elements of marathon pace practice as we get closer to the day. So that's an opportunity for you to take the long run up to a slightly different level and for you to practice the pace that you're going to run in the marathon itself. We can make that calculations based on a recent half marathon performance or 10K performance, or indeed if we don't have that, we can look at the paces that you're achieving for some of your training sessions and make a prediction and give you the right guidelines as to what that marathon pace practice should be. Other things that are really helpful, really important with 8 weeks to go is some good body conditioning. where you're doing specific exercises to try to strengthen things like the glutes, the hamstrings, the hip flexors, the calves, all the muscle groups that are going to be involved in running a marathon. Because with the marathon, with it being 26.2 miles, or unfortunately in this case for London this year, 28 miles, you're going to have to carry the body beyond the fatigue stage. So once you get beyond 18 miles, things start to hurt a little bit, things start to really ache. And if you're in good condition, that's really going to help. So good body conditioning, some cross training so that you're not doing too much running. And obviously it goes without saying you've got good nutrition and good hydration, because if you're looking after that, you're fueling the machine, you're making sure that you're not depleted after harder training sessions or long runs, so that you're ready for the next session, the next run. So that's what we want you guys, Edinburgh, to focus on. No setbacks is key, no injuries. So let's make sure we work on that. And as I say, if you need any guidance, just give me a shout by email. In terms of the focus for London, if you like, over the next 3 weeks, really, once you get beyond this weekend, the physiological gains are minimal. And once you get a couple of weeks out, they're almost non-existent. It wouldn't matter if you spent 2 weeks sat in a deck chair on the beach at Brighton, to be honest, because you're going to run as well as you're going to run. People think, as they do with lots of things in life, it's a bit like cramming for an exam. Oh, I've got to pack it in now. I've really got to step up. I've really got to push on. Well, unfortunately, endurance running isn't like that. You are where you are. You can't play catch up with endurance running. It takes weeks and months to develop endurance, to develop speed endurance. And if you try and do too much in these next 3 weeks, you stand a very good chance of either ending up ill or injured, or if not, your legs will be fatigued. You won't know it until you get to about 18 miles, but they will be fatigued, and then you're going to find out at 18 miles and it's too late. So it's not a time to try and play catch up. It's a time for consistency. It's a time for maintaining your routine. It's a time for not doing anything different. It's a time for focusing on good nutrition, good hydration, good recovery. It's a time to sort out any little niggles or injuries. Might be time to have a little sports massage and just check out if areas are tight or not. But what we don't want to do is try to overload the training. In fact, just the opposite. We're going to start to taper down the training so that you're ready for a big day. If the training is where it is, the main thing is you getting to the start line fresh-legged, injury-free, and not ill. And if we can do that, you're going to run the best marathon you can run. So you have to accept it, because mentally, over the next 3 weeks, you want to go out and prove to yourself, I can run long. And if you do that, it'll be a disaster. So please listen to this advice, because we've had years of it, haven't we, Ben?
Yeah, definitely. It's a stressful time, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's difficult.
It is difficult, but you have this thing inside your head saying, I want to prove that I can do it. It's a normal situation.
Yeah, and people go out and they do those 21 mile, 22 mile long runs, and they may have only got up to 15 already in their training, and suddenly they're jumping 7 miles in a weekend. And it's a crazy jump. Just because you read it in a magazine or you saw it on a website, no, it has to be right for you. Endurance is about what you've done over the last weeks and months, not just one long run. So please be aware of that. Then, as we get into the last week, which is where it comes into more focus for you guys for Paris and Brighton, we're looking at just trying to maintain a normal routine. So it's just a little bit of running to turn your legs over. You're trying to make sure that you're fueling the machine. So gradually you're introducing more complex carbohydrates into your nutrition. So you'll add an extra couple of potatoes, you have a little bit more rice, you perhaps have a mid-morning snack of a banana on toast or that type of thing, complex carbs, just to add a little bit of extra fuel to top up your glycogen stores. You're staying sensibly hydrated. You might have a little bit of electrolyte powder in your drinks to just make sure you're not flushing all the electrolytes out of your system, but nothing different. Relax, make sure you're organized, make sure your kit's ready, make sure you know how you get into the start. Ben will come on to that in a moment. But it's
trying to relax and not getting too carried away with the race. I find that people can rest up physically, but they find it difficult. Some people have got very busy jobs, stressful life, family, travel, etc. Mentally, they're not recovered. Now, mental recovery is really important because the mental energy required for a marathon is quite substantial. So, try to give yourself a couple of days where you do actually relax. And for some people, relaxing is quite difficult, but it's good. It's really going to help. If you're used to having a sports massage, then I'd say get one, but get it before Wednesday of the week of the marathon, because it does affect the legs a little bit. You do have to flush out any waste products that are associated with a sports massage. And if you have it too close to the marathon, it can make your legs feel a bit funny. So if you've had one, yes, have one. If you've never had a sports massage, leave it alone. Nothing different. Okay. We'll come on to a little bit more about understanding your race plan later on, but you need to have thought through how you're going to run, what effort level, what pace you're going to run. You'll have been practicing that in training, and it's just revisiting that area, refocusing on everything in that final week while staying relaxed. So one of the important things that you need to do is making sure that you are organized, ready for the race, and you understand what's going to happen on race day. And Ben's going to come along now and talk about logistics and race routes.
Yeah, there's plenty to go over the next slides. We'll try not to sort of keep you too long on it. What I would suggest is that go to any race websites and have a look there, and you'll be able to sort of get a bit more information. But firstly, on to Paris. The marathon is on the 9th of April, of course. You should have had all your info and fundraiser packs sent. And if you need anything, just get in touch with the BHF team. The expo in Paris runs from the 6th to the 8th of April, and you've got to go there to collect your race number. Sadly, the BHF are not going to be there on the day, but there's going to be plenty of support out there on the race itself. When you go to the expo, you're going to need to bring your ID and also your medical certificate to make sure that you can actually get your race number and race. If you've got any problems with this, check your last email that the British Heart Foundation team sent, and there's more info on there, or get in touch. The contact details are on the screen in just a second. And the race starts at 8:45 a.m. in Paris, so just make sure your travel to the race start has all been looked after and there's no issues with that. Brighton Marathon is the same weekend, 9th of April, and the race number has to be collected from the expo, which is in a new location this year at Brighton Event Village in Brighton Beach. Runs on Friday and Saturday, and you've got till 7 p.m. on the Saturday, the 8th of April, to go and collect your number. BHF are not going to have a stand at the expo, but they are going to have something after the race at the post-race marquee. Again, traveling can be a little bit difficult on race day, so make sure that you've thought about it, how you're going to get to Preston Park, where the race all starts. Give yourself plenty of time to drop your stuff kit off at the baggage trucks, and the race kicks off, as you can see, at 9:15 a.m. on Sunday morning. The BHF are going to have cheer points at Brighton Marathon, so they'll be at 5.5 miles on Marine Parade, and also at 13.5, which you'll be able to find very, very easily on the day. And their post-race marquee is number 13 along Brighton Beach. It's a great place to send friends and family and meet them afterwards, and also send them to the cheer points so they can make the British Heart Foundation ones the loudest cheer points on the course. And your event day guide should have all been sent, and also your running tops should have them. And but if you've got any problems again with that, just get in touch with the team. Contact details are again on screen, and they'll be able to help you with that and get things sorted. You've also got, I believe, 6 weeks after the event's finished to send in all your fundraising and everything else like that. So don't forget to get that sorted as well. On to the big one, the London Marathon. So to get your number for the London Marathon, you have to go to the London Marathon Expo, which runs from Wednesday the 19th to Saturday the 22nd. It's over at the XL Centre in the Docklands, and it can feel a little bit like a marathon in and of itself, going to collect your race bag and everything else, because it's a big area. There's lots of people, lots of stands and stalls and things to buy and look at. And if you're not careful, you can spend 4 or 5 hours at the expo and be stood on your feet, not drinking, not eating, and almost walk your marathon the day before or a few days before. So yeah, be careful when you go, have a plan and try not to spend too long there. If you can go on the Wednesday, Thursday, even the Friday morning, that's going to be a little bit quieter. But if you've got no choice but to get there on Saturday or Friday evening, you are going to be a little bit slower getting through. It is going to be busy. So take some food and drink with you and just spend a little bit of time going around, and don't sort of get too stressed about the whole thing. Don't leave it late at 4:55 on Saturday to try and go and pick up your race number, because at 5 p.m. the doors shut and there's no more getting in. As you can see, the BHF are going to have a little stand at the expo where you can go and pick up your supporters packs, get your running tops and everything else like that. Just have a chat with the team. They'll be at stand number 184. But you'll be able to see a map of the expo when you're there, and they'll be sending out more information on the cheer points and everything else to do with the race over the next few weeks. So London starts at Blackheath. There's 3 different starting points depending on the colour of your bib, but you'll be given information about this, and just work out how you're going to travel to the start line itself, and give yourself plenty of time in that morning. There's nothing wrong with arriving early to these big marathons. In fact, I suggest to do it, and then you can put your kit on the baggage truck, so the kit will be taken to the finish line, and then just wear some old clothes that you've got from a charity shop to keep yourself nice and warm, a bin bag if it's mildly raining so that you can keep yourself dry. And then as the race gets closer, you can just peel those layers off, drop them to the side of the road, and then they all get collected and given to a charity afterwards, which is lovely. And then you'll be nice and warm and not wasting energy, staying, shivering and just depleting yourself before the race has even started. A little extra tip is, if you're going to be really early, maybe take a magazine and a bit of cardboard to sit down on, and a magazine to read, just so you're not sat there really, really bored. And there's plenty of toilets at those race starts, so don't panic about that. There's 4 cheer points for the British Heart Foundation going around the London Marathon. So you've got 8 to 9, 12 to 13, Tower Bridge, also in Canary Wharf, and Westminster. So they're great places to send your supporters so that they can go and cheer all the British Heart Foundation runners come through, and yourself as well. A little bit about the sort of drink stations on London. So Buxton Water is the water supplier, and there'll be water every mile from miles 3 to 25. And they're little 250ml bottles with a sports cap, so really nice and easy to drink. No faffing around with cups at London. You don't need to drink water at every station. You take it when you need it. If you're thirsty, drink, but don't guzzle it down and force yourself to drink lots and lots of water, because it'll just be sloshing around in your tummy. And sip the water over half a mile or so. Don't think, just because Paula Radcliffe takes one swig and chucks her bottle away doesn't mean that you need to be doing that at all. And if you've used Lucozade, or you've used the Lucozade carb gels and you know that they work for you, then there's going to be Lucozade sports stations around the course, and also 2 gel stations as well. If you've never had them, I would suggest avoiding them on race day unless you're really struggling, because I find the Lucozade really sickly sweet and just not that pleasant when you are running and your tummy is a little bit upset and sore because you're busy doing other things. So being self-sufficient is often the best way to go, because you've been self-sufficient in your training. Why not be self-sufficient in your race? Have your own gels and just use the water stops to top up with water. These gel stations, the water stops, the carb station, they all are very, very busy. So you need to keep your wits about you. Try and, if you're not stopping, stick to the middle of the road and just watch out for any lying water bottles. If you are getting water or a drink, try and do it towards the end of the station, rather than diving right in at the beginning. And if you are cutting across from the middle to the side, just have a quick peek over, even point your hand, just so people know where you're moving, because we've seen many a marathon come apart at a water station by tripping on a bottle or just getting caught up with another runner. Just something to think about. And obviously Paris and Brighton will have their own nutrition suppliers, and you'll get all of that information on the race website. If you've got any questions, pop us a little line. And once you finish the London Marathon, you'll get your medal and your goodie bag, and you can collect your kit from the baggage truck and work out where to meet your friends and family. As mobile phones can be a bit sketchy around there, the best place to send them is to the BHF London Marathon post-race reception, which is in Church House, Dean's Yard, not far from the finish at all. Open until 5 p.m, so plenty of time to get there, no matter how long you're running around the marathon course. Friends and family can sit there, be nice and warm, and you can turn up after you've slowly made your way there. Food and drink are available, and a massage is on option if you need it, although your legs might be a little bit sore, and just generally being brushed with a feather is more than you'll need. In terms of Edinburgh Marathon, you've got to the 28th of May, which is plenty of time to think about all these things. But just know the Heart Runners team will be there on the day, and they'll have a cheer point, which will be around 8 miles, and there'll be a marquee at the finish. But there's more information is going to be sent out. Your T-shirts will be sent mid-April, and then the tops will be sent out 6 weeks before the race. So you can just get in touch if you've got any problems. But you've got 8 weeks or so to plan for this. You can check the website and work out all your travel and everything else, and then it's sorted out the way, and there's no need to panic. There's plenty on there. As I said, I kept referring to sort of the race websites because they're a really good place to go to get a bit more information. And this is sort of a really nervy time for runners. And so I think the best thing to do is just to have our physio, Julie, come and chat a little bit on a video about some last minute tips for injury and just little things you can be doing to help you make sure that you're ready for race day. So I'm just going to pass over to Julie's video now.
We should be just about on that schedule. Nothing should have gone dramatically wrong. Occasional little niggles, but now comes the worrying time where we start to get those little aches and pains that we think, oh, got an injury now. But in real terms, managing them sensibly, just with a little bit of ice, a little bit of stretching, will solve the problem. One of the key things that you might want to think about in the next couple of weeks is sorting out your feet. Make sure your toenails are neatly clipped. Don't go wild and cut them down too savagely. Make sure you've filed off any hard callus around the big toe or under the foot, because what you don't want is a big dense blob of callus sitting on your foot while you're running, because it will blister around it. So in the next couple of weeks, just gently soften it, gently remove it, and that will make life much, much easier for you on the big day. In terms of stretching, what you need to think about is doing it when you're really nice and warm. And the best place to do it is once a week or twice a week, getting a nice warm bath, put some nice gentle music on, and just give your hamstrings and your calves a little bit of a stretch in the nice hot water. Probably the easiest and kindest way to give your body a bit of a stretch. If you are suffering from any niggles, now's the time to really address them. Are they niggles that are going to lead to an injury, or are they just worry niggles? Now, worry niggles occur for every marathon runner. It doesn't matter who you are, how many marathons you've run, you're going to get the worry niggle. And it's usually a little bit of a pain around the knee, a little bit of pain in the calf, sore Achilles, but basically they're all just manageable. Treat them with a little bit of ice massage, so get an ice cube, wrap it in something so you don't get ice burns on your fingers, and just rub it gently over the area that's sore for about 5 or 10 minutes. Let it come back up to temperature, and then just do some very gentle mobility stretching, which means you stretch it to the point where it's just uncomfortable and then go back again. Do not hold long stretches at this time. It's all about mobility, making sure the body is mobile and able to cope with the running. What you will find in the next couple of weeks is you'll have some runs that feel terrible. That's a really good sign. It's a bit like a rehearsal for a play. If one of the rehearsals goes really badly, most of the actors know it's going to be good on the day. And it's exactly the same for a marathon runner. So when you have your bad run, your disaster run, don't put your head down and think, oh, it's awful. Just give yourself that little smile at the back of your mind and say, that just is going to tell me it's going to be good on the day. On the day itself, make sure that you're doing nothing different to your routine. Don't worry about warming up with anything more than just a bit of gentle jogging. Don't go wild on the stretching, and certainly don't sit around for ages at the start. Get up, wander about. Use the nervous energy usefully. It will make it easier when you set off, not to go off like a whippet. But most of all, in these last couple of weeks, start to think about how good it's going to feel to cross the line. What you're going to do as you come down Birdcage Walk. What you're going to do as you turn in the mile. And how you're going to get across the line. More importantly, how you're going to celebrate so the cameras pick up your best side as your photographs are taken. So all in all I want to say now is just have a great time. Thanks very much.
That's some great advice there from Julie. And I think just key not to do anything different or silly over the next few weeks, and especially the the warm-up advice is really good, and you see a lot of people, the race might put on one of these crazy warm-ups with people doing all sorts of Mr. Motivator routines, and just have a giggle at anyone doing that, because you don't need to be doing star jumps, lunges, and anything else before your marathon. And we're now just we've got a couple of videos from the BHF just to remind us really why we're sort of doing all of this, and why you're putting those miles in and doing all that fundraising, and sort of finishing that off. So here we go with the first video.
All right, everyone, this is big day, finally. Me, maid of honour, obviously. Everybody's here, Mum, Dad. It's a shame I'm going to miss it. Sorry I ruined your big day, sis.
Some powerful stuff. And you may have spoken to many of the British Heart Foundation Heart Runners team on the over the phone or via email, but they've got a little message they wanted to share with you, and you can put some faces to names right now.
On behalf of the British Heart Foundation, we want to wish you a massive good luck and thank you for supporting our vital life-saving research.
Certainly something to get you motivated, and also think about why you're doing this.
Yeah, I think
fantastic challenge.
I think the video of showing the pretty motivating message. It's heart disease is a killer, and I'm sure you guys are very well aware of that. And you not only have the overall British Heart Foundation message, but you've probably got your own personal reasons for doing it as well. And they are making massive inroads with their research, with their changes to people's lifestyles, etc. And it is having great effects. So all the money that you raise, and we know that the fundraising is a really hard part of it, but those guys, the team, are there to help you if you need any help on that score. But it's valued, it's really appreciated, and it does a fantastic job. So keep up the good work. And I'll come back to that video in a moment. But
you're going to look at the last 24 hours now, aren't you, and then sort of into the race of itself.
Yeah, I think again the last 24 hours is a bit like an extension of the final week. It's it's a nervous time. You are anxious. I don't think there's anything worse in endurance running than waiting for a race. And I used to race all around the world and sit in a hotel room for a couple of days waiting for a race. And I remember being in Boston waiting for my first marathon. And it's just, there's nothing you can do. But having said that, there's quite a bit you can still get wrong. So the important thing is to rest up and relax, and not to spend too much time on your feet. As Ben was mentioning about the expo, if you've got to go there on a Saturday, then try and get in and get out as quickly and as efficiently as you can, to then relax. Make sure that you're grazing on small carb-based meals and keeping hydrated. So if you're traveling, or at the expo, or if you're traveling to Paris on the Saturday, you need to bear that in mind. You don't want to spend a couple of hours on a train, or it breaks down, or you get delayed and you've got nothing to eat or drink. So making sure that you keep on top of that is smart. You don't want to be comfort eating or comfort drinking, so don't go overboard, but just keep it sensible, and staying positive. You're bound to have a bit of a wobble, you're bound to have a bit of a panic, you're bound to feel a bit stressed at some point, but just remember, you've done as much as you can do. Worrying about it isn't going to change it or make it any better. Staying as relaxed and calm, you're going to use less energy. If you're panicking and your heart rate's up and you're worried, you're going to be burning energy, which you'll have to replace. So try to keep it calm, nothing different. If somebody says to you, this is the wonder bar of all wonder bars at the expo, make you go faster, no, it won't. Just stick with what you've got and what you've practiced and what you know. Then we get on to, and in terms of the last 24 hours, my advice would be to have your final meal quite early. So I used to eat my last meal about 6 o'clock, but my meals before a marathon would be very much, of the steamed rice variety with perhaps some vegetables. I wouldn't have any solid protein, and I would just have a number of those. I might have some steamed rice with banana on it, a little bit of sugar sprinkled on it, something like that, or fruit, but nothing too fibrous, nothing too big. What you don't want to be doing is going to the pasta party and just having a big bowl of pasta at 9 o'clock the night before your race. You just end up feeling like Mr. Blobby, horrible on the start line. So keep it sensible, keep it controlled. In terms of race morning, you should have been practicing a routine that you know works for you before your long run. So what you eat, what time you eat it, how long you need to eat it before you get to the start line. And for those of you doing London and Edinburgh, if you haven't practiced it, start practicing it, because it's nothing like knowing what you're going to eat the day before, knowing what you're going to have for your breakfast, and knowing the timings of that to make sure you're well prepared. That's what the marathon is about. The marathon is about attention to detail and planning. And if you've got everything in place, as Ben suggested about logistics, about kit, about travel, then, and you've got your food and your hydration sorted, you're going to be in a great place, because they're all those things you don't have to worry about. It's the people that haven't planned them that are in a panic mode, and you don't want to be in a panic mode before you run a marathon. So that's all you need to do on race morning. Perhaps take a little energy drink or a little bottle of water to the start so that you can sip. You probably won't need very much of it, but there's that moment when your mouth gets a bit dry. You just need something to keep you comfortable. Allow time to get to the start. You don't want to be rushing around trying to get there. Keep dressed for the conditions so that you are not using energy to keep warm or dry, but you've got old clothes, as Ben said. And then you're ready, you're in your pen, you're ready for the start. It is still going to be quite nervous, and you'll be nervous until you start running. Once you start running, you're fine. Everything will disappear, and you just get on with it. But it's about remembering to respect the marathon distance. Don't be scared of it. Just respect it. 26.2 miles, or unfortunately 28 miles for London this year, is going to be, it's a significant challenge. It's a big distance, and you've just got to have your plan, have your marathon pace, have your zone, your time zone that you're going to slot into. So, for example, if you were going to run a sub 4 hour plan, then that's round about 9:10s normally for the marathon. We would say to you, look, have a little window of about 8:55 to 9:05 that you can slot into. It's not too precise that you're trying to hit an exact time every single mile. There's the odd mile that will go slightly down or slightly up. That takes into account, gives you a window, and you slot into that. How should it feel? Well, it should feel very easy for the first 16 miles. It should feel, as Greta Veit said, it's just transport. You're just trying to look after yourself. You're taking your gels, you're taking the hydration. You should feel controlled. You shouldn't be puffing and panting. You shouldn't be red in the face. And if you are, you're going too hard. So you've got to just keep it in that area of controlled, steady running. Things that you've done on your long run every single time. Relaxed, like Ben said, avoiding the bottles on the floor, avoiding bumping into somebody at a drink station, being aware, but being relaxed. The marathon is about thinking for the full race. You try to relax for the first 16 miles and not be thinking too much, but once you get beyond 16 miles, you've really got to start to concentrate. You've got to think about your body check. How's my running style? Have I started to sit on my hips? Have I started to slouch? Have I started to switch off? If you're not careful beyond 18 miles, you get into this land of fatigue and things start to hurt a little bit. You become a plodder and you start to get into the zombie zone, as I call it. You've got to avoid that at all costs, because once you get into the zombie zone, you've stopped looking after yourself, you've stopped taking your gels and your hydration, and you've stopped running efficiently. So you've got to pull yourself back together, do the body check, keep taking the energy, and then you're going to keep running well. It might be sore, it might be stiff, it might ache, but you've got to stay alert to what's going on. And that's where you just got to say, right, from 18 miles, 1 mile at a time. Is that how you approached it?
Yeah, you definitely. Because you're tired, and sometimes it was get to the next lamppost and then we'll discuss.
Yeah.
You sort of make those sort of deals with your body.
Yeah.
And you've got, I think if you're smart and you've got sort of places to be, you've got cheer points to get to, or friends and family along the way, you can break those miles down and not be thinking, oh, I've done 18, I've got 8 or 10 to go.
Yeah.
Because that will really hurt.
Yeah, that's the kind of negative mental outlook, in that, well, oh, I've got 8 to go. Oh, I've got 7 to go. You know, what you need to think is, let's just deal with this 1 mile. Let's just get this 1 mile right. And mentally, that's where you need to flick back to that video of showing the British Heart Foundation and the work it's doing. You need tactics to take your mind away from what your body's doing. There was a chap who came to one of the British Heart Foundation training days who told us he used to, beyond 20 miles, have a very special person in his mind for every mile. So he would think about that and focus on that. That gave him some real motivation. It gave him some cheer. And he wasn't thinking about the pain involved of running at that point. And it is a bit painful, isn't it?
Oh, it hurts. I think a good one, Paula Radcliffe used to do, was count to 100. Yeah. And if you've never run a marathon before, by about 18, 19 miles, your brain doesn't work too well.
No.
And you'll probably take about 2 or 3 miles to count to 100 because you keep forgetting where you are and you keep stopping and starting.
That's why
take your mind off it, isn't it?
I mean, that's why I was talking earlier about the being mentally fresh, because you get to 18, 19, 20 miles. I mean, I got to 20 miles. In Boston, I couldn't work out my mile splits. You know, your brain just starts to fry. So, you know, if you can be as mentally fresh as you can, if you can just really focus for that from 18 to 23, Ben, I think.
Yeah, there is that tipping point. Once you get over about 23, your brain switches to, I will let you finish now. I'm not going to try and stop you. We'll get to the end. Yeah. And so you've got to fight that, because the body is crying to stop, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's the mind that's saying, tell my body to stop.
Yeah.
Actually, you don't feel like you can keep going, but you can if you can just focus on 1 mile at a time. And the other thing is, if you've got your race plan right, which is why the marathon isn't a race where you just put your finger in the air and think, oh, I might run a sub 4 today. You need to know what you can run, because if you've got your tactics right for the race, you are still in a position to have the energy to do it. Whereas if you've got it completely wrong, by the time you get to 15, 16, you've blown your wheels off and you've got no energy to deal with it anyway.
Then you hit this wall.
Then you hit the proper wall. Yeah. Following our suggestions, you'll hit a wall of a bit of fatigue and a bit of achiness, but you can get through it if you think about why I'm doing it, who am I doing it for, how much do I want it. I've got 1 mile at a time beyond 18. And just to let those people put them out of their misery, Ben, we were, as it is April Fool's Day, we were only joking about the 28 miles for London. It is still going to be officially 26.2 miles. And that was our little April Fool.
Apologies for that.
Wasn't quite spaghetti growing on trees, no. But it was the best we could
come up with.
But when you get towards the end of the marathon, particularly London, we're talking about London a lot, I know, but particularly London, the crowd is there along the embankment. Run on the left-hand side. You're gonna get some love from the crowd. They want you to finish. They're cheering you all the way. They're so supportive. It's unbelievable. It's crazy. I mean, people stand there for hours and hours cheering.
Yeah.
Complete strangers, but the love is there. They want you to get to the finish. You try and suck some of the energy out of them. And when you go towards the finish line, make sure that you're not looking down at your watch, and you wipe all the bits off the face and the nose. Smile at the camera. But as Ben said, once you cross the line, you do need to keep warm and dry, because you haven't got any energy. You do need to get some food inside you as much as you can. Perhaps you have a energy drink in your kit bag. One thing about crossing the line, when you cross the line, I don't know about your experience, but when I cross the line and then stop, I do tend to go to one side a little bit, So, you know,
there are usually St John's ambulance
Yeah.
or something similar on hand.
just be aware of
Yeah.
that. You will feel a bit weird because you've been running for 26.2 miles. And really just, you know, do everything you can in your power to help yourself recover. Get your kit on, stay warm because you haven't got any energy to keep warm. And particularly if it's a particularly horrible day, get into some shelter. Get to the British Heart Foundation place and meet your family and friends. Take on board some fluid, some energy drinks, and if you can, take on a bit of chocolate or anything that you fancy, really. It is difficult sometimes because you're a bit queasy, but you should feel absolutely proud of yourself when you cross that finish line. It is quite an emotional.
Oh, it's really emotional.
Time.
You see, I was very emotional on a number of my marathons, and you see people just almost burst into tears for that relief and the sort of weight of expectations off your shoulders when you finish the line. So expect that to happen.
And you know, you do need time to recover afterwards. You can't just go out straight out and run. You need a couple of weeks of just active recovery of swimming or biking or cross training, or go and do 1 or 2 gym classes, relax. But look for your next challenge.
Yeah. So you'd avoid the running club on the Monday to go and do some intervals after the marathon on the Sunday.
That's just crazy. Yeah, I mean, you can go down if you're part of a running club. Go down with your medal on by all means, but I wouldn't do any running. I just I would leave it there. But I just want to make before we finish and do a bit of a roundup. I just want to give a shout out for Tom Anderson. My eldest son is going to be running London this year. He's going to be in the elite start. So if you see Tom on your travels, perhaps give him a shout. He's trying to beat my marathon time of 2:17:08, so I think he's going to do that. Don't you, Ben?
I hope so.
And so yeah, give him a shout. But yeah, in terms of questions, Ben, have we got any questions to fire in?
We've got a couple. So with one about the marathon, I think you've sort of touched on it a little bit. Should we run even pace throughout, or should we get some time in the bank at the beginning?
You know, time in the bank in the beginning is all very well as long as it's comfortable time in the bank.
Yeah.
I think if you're forcing the pace along to get extra seconds in reserve, that's a folly. You're going to come unstuck. But you know, let's say we were talking about a sub-4 and we were saying, look, between 8:55 and 9:05. If you were doing the odd mile that was down to 8:45 because of slightly downhill, or you just relaxed and it was flowing, absolutely fine. That's fine. Other people, you know, like to run a negative split, so you can run a little bit slower in the first half and then try and pick it up. But that is quite difficult,
especially if you're out on your feet for 4 hours plus, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, you know, it's got to feel at the right effort level.
Yeah,
that's the important thing.
Yeah, but just not. So there's no. Yeah, it's false economy, isn't it? Putting too much time.
Too much time.
Yeah. So you've got to work within your limits, and that's why we've practiced it.
Yeah.
In the long runs.
Yeah.
I got one actually that came in on Twitter whilst you were talking away here. But in terms of sort of gels, do you think take your own if you've always practiced with a certain brand, or risk it on the day? Because obviously with Lucozade being at London,
I think, as I said about the marathon being about attention to detail, stick with what you know. Have your gels in your belt that you're going to take. Know when you're going to take them.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen people run with the gels. They're fine taking them up to halfway, 16 miles, and then they switch off, get into zombie land.
Yeah.
You know, just carry your own gels. Take your own gels when you've decided you're going to take them. Stick with that plan. Then I mean, if the wheels come off and you need a gel, then you'll grab one.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. And don't be afraid to mix and match gels and brands, because you don't want to get that flavour fatigue, as you say.
Gelled out.
Yeah, which can happen.
Yeah.
But I've definitely seen people carry, you know, their gels 26.2 miles and they've still got 3 or 4 around the waist. So you think, what's the? I mean, transported them.
I think sometimes it's nice to have gels, and sometimes, you know, maybe have a few jelly babies.
Yeah.
You know, that type of thing, just to give yourself something different.
Definitely. And we didn't quite mention, but would you suggest booking something after the marathon just to give yourself some focus afterwards, or would you just sit and lie on the sofa for 3 weeks and do nothing?
No, I always think that you know, it's such a big challenge. You've committed so much time and energy and effort to it. It is fantastic. You know, many people, and this is why it's great doing it for the British Heart Foundation, they've changed their lifestyles. They've lost weight. They've given up alcohol. They've really looked after themselves. And to me, to get to this point of doing a marathon, it's a shame to waste that fitness. You know, I think of another challenge. It doesn't have to be a running challenge, but British Heart Foundation have got loads. I mean, biking challenges, trekking, you know, or you could do think about another, you know, get faster at half marathon in the autumn. But I think booking something just gets you back into the commitment.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need to start training immediately, but
gets you thinking about it.
Yeah, and if you're not careful, it just drifts away.
Yeah.
You know,
which you definitely don't want to do.
Yeah.
No. Oh, and how often? Oh, Mike's got a question here about gels and how often we recommend taking them.
Well, I think that, you know, if you take your first one after around an hour, and then depending on how it sits with you, but either 30 to 45 minutes every time after that is when you would take another one. You've got to sip them, and if it's SIS gels, which is what we recommend, an isotonic gel passes through the stomach wall, gets into the energy systems quicker, but just sip it rather than gulping it down. Same with your water. You're trying not to gulp anything down so you get more air into your system. It's, you know, just a gentle sip. So yeah, after an hour, and then every 30 to 45 minutes.
Yeah, I think you've got to remember with gels, they're not instant energy. They're not going to just perk you up unless you're taking the caffeine ones. They can be really nice later on to try and perk you out of that zombie zone. As long as you've had caffeine before, you're not going to have any adverse reactions to it.
And I tend to take the ordinary gels up till about 20, and then if you don't have caffeine ones,
put them in after then. And yes, that's a useful way of doing it as well. And practice that over the next few weeks to get it right. But yeah, they do take 20 minutes or so to filter into the system. So don't expect an instant perk up.
There's quite a few little shouts there about our April Fools. It got a few people going.
I'm glad.
But at least it didn't reach the BBC.
Yeah, no.
Any others, Ben?
No, that's it for we're out of questions.
Good. Well, just a little roundup. You know, those of you doing London, and certainly those doing Paris and Brighton, you know, the hay's in the barn. You've done everything you can do. Just don't burn the barn down, London people, the next few weeks. You know, don't want to get a niggle. There's nowhere worse than having an injury before a marathon and you're trying to get that fixed. If you have got an injury, let's get it fixed. Let's sort it out. But just same routine. Practice everything, your kit, gels, eating strategy, timings. Know where you're going. Know what time you got to be there. Know what you've got to do. In the race itself, it's about being mentally tough from 18 to 23. And if you can do that and take 1 mile at a time in that little zone, you're going to do it as long as when the question's asked, why am I doing it? How much do I want it? You've got to have some good answers in your head. And by doing it for the British Heart Foundation, you're going to have a fantastic answer, because I'm sure most of you have got a real personal story of why you're doing it. If you get a chance and you've got time, send us in your story, send us in how you found it, send us in about your experience. We're here all the way through to race day and beyond. So any questions, anything we can help you with, just give us a shout. The BHF team are there. David's there if you've got any questions about fundraising, and we'll get them sorted out for you as well. But I think other than that, it's just a big good luck.
Yeah, definitely. And enjoy the day.
Enjoy the day, and we'll see you again next time. And have a great one. Bye.
Bye.